The CEO, the housekeeper, and the unseen love. At 5 a.m., her alarm was a brutal reminder. She was a single mom, exhausted, fighting to keep her head above water. He was a ruthless billionaire, living in a sterile mansion, convinced love was a weakness. Their worlds were galaxies apart, until a sick baby, a desperate choice, and a hidden vulnerability shattered everything they thought they knew. Can a heart of stone be melted by an unseen love? Where are you watching this from? Tell us in the comments. If you believe unexpected connections can change everything, hit the like button. Don't miss this incredible story of sacrifice, healing, and the power of true affection. Subscribe now for more gripping tales. At 5 a.m., the alarm blared, just as it did every day. Maria reached out to silence it without waking Lucas. She looked at her 6-month-old baby, fatigue in her eyes, resting peacefully in the tiny crib beside her bed. Despite her exhaustion, a smile touched her lips. Ever since the baby's father left her alone when he discovered she was pregnant, each day was a struggle to stay afloat. She quickly got up to get ready. The gray cleaning uniform was already ironed and prepared. Although the salary at the Blackwood mansion was better than other jobs, the demands were quite high. As she tied her hair into a simple ponytail, she felt her phone vibrate. "So sorry, Maria. I'm feeling unwell and won't be able to take care of Lucas today." The nanny's message caught her completely by surprise. This was the 3rd time this month. She tried contacting her neighbor, her cousin, even the shop owner, but no one could help. The clock ticked relentlessly, and Maria made an extreme decision. She would take Lucas to work with her, half an hour away, in the city's most exclusive district. Nicholas Blackwood finished his morning workout in his private home gym. At 38, he exhibited strict discipline in every facet of his existence. Under his leadership, the family company had experienced remarkable growth, becoming one of the most prominent nationally. However, achieving success came with sacrifices. As he received updates on the day's meetings from his assistant, his keen blue eyes scanned the impeccable decor of his residence. Everything was perfectly arranged, just as he liked it. After his divorce 3 years ago, Nicholas got rid of all personal items that might evoke memories. Despite its elegance, the mansion showed the same lack of warmth he displayed in the business world. His assistant informed him, "The agreement with the Japanese delegation is ready to be signed this afternoon." She handed him the relevant documents. "Don't forget to approve the updated budgets tomorrow." Nicholas nodded curtly. He lived immersed in a constant flurry of meetings, deals, and corporate decisions. There was no room for anything else in his life. At that very moment, Maria hurried towards the mansion, carrying Lucas in her arms and a small backpack with his belongings. As she entered through the service entrance, she hoped Mr. Blackwood had already left. Carmen, the head housekeeper, greeted her with surprise. "What a surprise to see this little one here. Are you out of your mind?" Maria struggled to explain that her nanny had canceled, and she had no one to leave him with. She spoke with a pleading tone in her voice. Carmen shook her head worriedly, saying, "Just for today, I promise. If the boss finds out, he'll fire you immediately. You know how he is with interruptions." Maria assured her she would leave him in the service room. "He'll go unnoticed." The disparity between their realities was evident. While Nicholas made choices that impacted countless employees from his glass office, Maria nervously hurried to clear the remnants of her first meal of the day, hearing footsteps approach the room where she had left Lucas. In the morning, Maria managed to keep her secret. She seized every available moment to quickly check on the baby, feed him, or change his diaper. The tiny room had become a temporary sanctuary, though she knew it wouldn't be sustainable for long. The day went smoothly until the afternoon, when, while cleaning one of the main corridors, she heard a cry that made her shiver. Lucas should have woken up by now. Without hesitation, she quickly went to the laundry room. As she picked up her little one, she realized he had a fever. The baby cried inconsolably from the sudden fever, and nothing seemed to calm him. Urgently, she rushed him to the kitchen in search of a wet cloth. So focused on reducing his fever, she didn't notice the front door opening. Hearing the crying, Nicholas Blackwood stopped abruptly. He had returned earlier than expected due to a severe headache. He headed towards the kitchen, following the sound, and discovered his housekeeper holding a child. "What is this?" he inquired brusquely. Maria stood motionless, holding Lucas, who cried in her arms. Their worlds had just collided in the most unfortunate way. "Mr. Blackwood," she stammered, fearing the worst. "My nanny canceled, and I had no one to leave him with. He has a fever and—" Nicholas's blue gaze fixed on the little one with an inscrutable expression. For an instant, something seemed to break in his normally icy gaze. Nicholas's reaction surprised Maria. Instead of immediately terminating her contract, he simply let out a sigh. "Keep the child out of my sight until you find a suitable nanny," he finally said, turning to leave. Maria remained frozen, barely processing what had happened. Why hadn't he fired her? As she held Lucas in her arms, the question hung in the air, without her imagining that this moment would mark a before and after in their destinies. Why do you think Nicholas didn't fire Maria? What secrets do you think lie behind his seemingly cold exterior? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you're hooked by this unexpected turn of events, hit the like button and subscribe for more. 3 days had passed since the incident with Lucas, and Maria was surprised she still had her job. Every morning she arrived at the mansion, expecting to be summoned by Nicholas to his office for termination. However, it didn't happen. As a precaution, she had entrusted Lucas to a neighbor who agreed to care for him for a while, though the price was difficult for her to afford. While Maria cleaned the windows in the main living room, she discreetly glanced at her boss, who was engrossed in his laptop. No one could truly decipher Nicholas Blackwood, who maintained a serious and distant demeanor, as if an invisible barrier isolated him from his surroundings and the people around him. "Carmen tells me you're having trouble with your childcare." Nicholas broke the silence, surprising Maria. She affirmed, astonished that he was addressing her. "I'm constantly looking for someone, but it's hard to find anyone who accepts the salary I can offer." Nicholas nodded without looking away from his screen, appearing focused on his work. He told her she could use the space next to the laundry room if she ever needed to bring him. "The ventilation is better there." Maria almost dropped her cloth. Was the boss giving her permission to bring Lucas? "Are you sure, sir?" she dared to ask. Nicholas frowned as if he had spoken without thinking. "As long as it doesn't affect your work." He stood and left the room in silence, though Maria perceived his hands were tightly clenched, as if he were battling against that very decision. After 3 days, the neighbor contacted Maria while she was at work. She could no longer take care of Lucas. Her daughter had fallen ill. Maria felt the weight of anguish pressing on her shoulders. Her salary wasn't enough to cover essential expenses, and hiring a new caretaker meant a cost she couldn't afford. During her break, she explored alternatives, contacting various people without success. "Everyone's fees are too high," she murmured to herself, exhausted. Finally, with no other option, Maria was forced to bring the baby back to the mansion, this time placing him in the room Nicholas had suggested. The day passed without incident. Lucas was remarkably serene, as if he were aware of his mother's difficult situation. As evening approached, Maria was following the cook's instructions for dinner when she recognized her son's distinctive giggle. Worried, she hurried to the room where she had left him. To her surprise, she found Nicholas standing near the open door, watching Lucas, who was playing with a teddy bear Maria didn't remember giving him. Maria quickly apologized to Mr. Blackwood and offered to move Lucas elsewhere. But Nicholas, without taking his eyes off the baby, told her it wasn't necessary, as he loved hearing his infectious laughter. His tone, perhaps with a touch of sadness, made Maria look at him more closely. For the first time, she noticed tiny lines around his eyes, indicative of an exhaustion that transcended the merely physical. Lucas, sensing he was being watched, looked towards the door and stretched out his tiny arms, wiggling his little hands as if trying to reach for something. Maria held her breath, expecting Nicholas to feel uncomfortable, but he only offered a faint smile. That night, after dinner was prepared, Nicholas surprised Maria with an unexpected question about Lucas's father, which made her nervous. She didn't like to talk about that subject. When he found out I was pregnant, he left without saying much more. I haven't heard from him since. Nicholas remained calm, as if reflecting on the information. "Do you regret it?" he inquired. "Regret Lucas?" For the first time, Maria showed a genuine smile in his presence. "Never. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me." A pleasantly unusual silence settled between them. For a brief moment, they stopped being boss and employee, becoming two individuals sharing a sincere moment. Nicholas concluded by saying, "You can use the room whenever you need it. Just keep it organized." She thanked him, controlling the emotion in her voice. That night, while everyone else slept, Nicholas decided to explore the contents of his bedside table drawer. Inside, hidden among various papers, was a picture he hadn't looked at in a long time. In the photograph, a woman smiled broadly at the camera, clearly showing her pregnant belly. He gently ran his thumb over the photograph, lost in memories that still pained him, as if it were yesterday. While putting Lucas to sleep in the service room, Maria pondered her boss's peculiar behavior. When he looked at the baby, his gaze reflected a mix of wonder and melancholy that she found hard to understand. What mysteries did Nicholas Blackwood hide behind his rigid exterior? She planted a kiss on her little one's forehead, grateful for his unexpected empathy. Perhaps, she thought as she turned off the lamp, her boss harbored secrets no one suspected. What profound secret do you think Nicholas Blackwood is hiding about his past? And how will it relate to Maria and Lucas? Will their growing connection transform his guarded heart? Share your theories in the comments. And if you're captivated by this evolving relationship, hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional revelations. In recent weeks, a subtle shift had occurred in the daily dynamic of the Blackwood mansion. Maria continued to bring Lucas occasionally when she had no one to care for him. And to her surprise, Nicholas seemed increasingly comfortable with the little one's presence. One morning, Maria discovered a package on the table in the room Lucas usually occupied. Upon opening it, she found a baby monitor and a tiny rattle. Although there was no note, she was absolutely certain of the person who had left it there. Nicholas had given Lucas gifts on 3 different occasions. It started with the teddy bear, then came a complete outfit, and now this. While preparing lunch, Carmen observed that the man was changing. She had never seen him show so much interest in another person. Despite not replying, Maria felt a mix of gratitude and bewilderment. The strict and reserved man who had employed her was beginning to show a more friendly attitude, especially in Lucas's presence. That night, Maria stayed working late. She had to finish organizing some papers Nicholas would need for a very important meeting. While she worked in the office, Lucas rested peacefully in the temporary room. Suddenly, the baby's cries caught her by surprise. She glanced at the clock. It was almost 10 at night, and she had lost track of time. She quickly got up, and just before she left, she noticed the crying subsided. Upon reaching the room, she stopped abruptly. Nicholas was there, holding Lucas with astonishing naturalness. The child, who usually cried when held by strangers, seemed completely at ease in his arms. Tiny fingers clutched Nicholas's tie firmly as he whispered calming words to him. "Shush, little one. Your mom is busy right now, but she'll be here soon." Maria held her breath, avoiding disturbing the moment. It was moving to witness how a man of such power held her son with extreme tenderness. After a moment, she apologized. "Sorry, sir," she said. "I lost track of time." Turning, Nicholas showed no shame or discomfort. He said, "He was in tears. The monitor I lent you was working fine," he commented calmly. "Finish the task you were busy with. I'll stay with him for a moment." "No need. If I can, I'll reaffirm it." He intervened with a voice that left no room for argument, though without his characteristic severe tone. Maria nodded and returned to the office, feeling a growing intrigue at her boss's attitude. Carmen watched with a worried expression from the hallway. As Maria passed by, she grabbed her arm. "Stay alert, little one," she whispered softly. "If he develops a strong attachment, it could hurt both you and the baby." "What do you mean by that?" Maria asked, puzzled. Carmen shook her head. "It's not my place to reveal it, but there are scars in this house that have never healed." That night, Maria found Nicholas resting on the sofa, with the baby asleep in his arms. The sight left her speechless. Nicholas whispered, "His eyes are just like yours, and his smile too." He thanked her for taking care of him, moving to pick up the little one. Gently, Nicholas handed him over, their hands barely touching as the object passed from one to the other. An unusual silence filled with unspoken thoughts settled between them. "Suddenly," he murmured, "I don't understand why seeing him impacts me so much." More to himself than to Maria. With surprise in her eyes, she chose not to say anything. Nicholas took a deep breath before continuing. "My wife and I were blessed with a baby. He came into the world prematurely. He only managed to stay alive for a short time." Maria felt a tightness in her chest. Suddenly, everything began to make sense. His distant attitude, his fixation on organization, his initial rejection of Lucas's presence. Nicholas Blackwood wasn't characterized by a lack of emotions, but by having effectively guarded himself against them. "I'm sorry," she whispered softly, unable to find other suitable words at that moment. He continued saying that she couldn't cope with the situation, as if he felt an urge to express those words he had kept hidden for so long. She was accused of dedicating too much time to work during her pregnancy, of not being present when complications arose. Perhaps she was right. After a month from the funeral, he asked for a separation. Maria hugged Lucas tighter, deeply grateful for her son's health and safety. "Not everyone can face such a loss," she said softly. "However, you're still here." Nicholas looked at her, feeling as if he was truly seeing her for the first time. He expressed with a sincerity that stunned her, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm still here, or just pretending to be. Good night, Maria. Have a wonderful night." Maria couldn't get Nicholas's confession out of her mind as she walked towards the bus stop with Lucas asleep in her arms. Suddenly, everything began to make sense. His distant attitude, his need to control everything, his initial rejection of Lucas, and now, his increasing curiosity about the baby. On this occasion, Nicholas Blackwood seemed different to me. Not like the authoritarian figure she feared, but like someone who had suffered unimaginable losses. How will Nicholas's past grief continue to shape his actions towards Maria and Lucas? Will their unspoken connection finally blossom into something more? Share your predictions in the comments, and if you're deeply moved by their evolving bond, hit that like button and subscribe for more heartfelt chapters. In the weeks that followed, A significant transformation could be seen in the Blackwood residence. The once dark and silent area now buzzed with Lucas's laughter, and occasionally with Nicholas's subtle smile. Maria finally managed to find a trustworthy babysitter. However, curiously, Nicholas found reasons for Lucas to visit the mansion at least twice a week. He expressed his desire not to miss the atmosphere. Perhaps the babysitter needs a break. Maria didn't question the sincere excuses, as she noticed how her son's presence changed the house's atmosphere. On Sunday afternoon, Nicholas surprised her by asking her to extend her working hours for a few more. It was unusual for him to ask for her during the weekend. However, he argued it was for a different project. Upon arriving with Lucas, Nicholas was waiting for them in the backyard. "What's all this about?" Maria wondered, surprised to see the tiny inflatable pool and toys scattered on the lawn. Nicholas didn't hesitate to mention that the temperature was high. "I thought the little one would like to cool off." Lucas, 8 months old and determined to crawl, clearly got excited seeing the vibrant colors. The surprise of the gesture made Maria smile. "You didn't have to bother, sir," Nicholas corrected her. "During our free time, it would be better if you called me by my name instead of my title." The afternoon passed in a different dimension, where Maria wasn't performing household duties, and Nicholas wasn't acting as a strict businessman. They were simply two adults, delighting in the infectious happiness of a baby, playing cheerfully in the water. While Lucas entertained a rubber duck, Nicholas settled beside Maria under the shade of a tree. He said, with an almost mischievous smile, that the duck seemed to prefer his company. This gesture was new to Maria. A laugh escaped her as she felt a comforting sensation grow in her heart. "You don't have to scold him when he misbehaves. That's why it seems easy to you," he commented with a hint of possibility, capturing Maria's attention with his tone. The moment their eyes met, everything around them seemed to vanish for an instant. A shiver ran down Maria's spine. What was the situation between them? What had once been a risk seemed unreachable, but was becoming increasingly difficult to avoid. The feeling of routine persisted until dusk began to settle. As they collected items from the garden, Lucas began to yawn, exhausted from the day. Maria suggested, "It would be good to take him home. The day has been tiring for him." Nicholas offered to drive them. "It's too late for you to take the bus." "No need, really," she insisted gently, interrupting her. "I'd worry if you went alone at this time of day." The ride in Nicholas's luxurious car passed in silence, though surprisingly pleasant. Lucas quickly fell into a deep sleep, lulled by the soft hum of the engine. Upon arriving at Maria's humble apartment building, she suddenly felt the stark difference between their realities. As she picked up Lucas and his belongings, she thanked him for everything. "It's been simply wonderful." Nicholas looked at her so intensely that she had to hold her breath. "I agree with you," he confessed, "even more than you can imagine." As they said goodbye, they implicitly promised to repeat evenings like that in the future, and so it happened. In the following weeks, their dynamic evolved into something ambiguous, surpassing a work relationship but not quite friendship, with an underlying tension neither of them openly mentioned. At the end of the day, after Maria had put Lucas to bed, which was slowly becoming his own space in the house, she bumped into Nicholas in the dimly lit hallway. They were alone. Most of the staff had already left. Nicholas commented, "The child looks more and more like you." "That's what everyone says," she replied with a smile, "though he has his dad's stubbornness. I imagine raising a child alone must be a challenge." Maria nodded subtly. "It is, but I would choose it repeatedly." In a moment of stillness, their gazes met, and something in the atmosphere transformed. Nicholas moved closer to her, closing the distance between them. Maria felt her heart beat faster. He raised a hand, hesitating briefly, before gently caressing her face. Time stood still for an instant. Nicholas calmly leaned in, offering her the opportunity to pull away if she preferred. However, Maria remained still. Their lips brushed in a cautious, almost timid kiss that soon evolved into something more intense, more urgent. Decades of isolation and suffering seemed to vanish with that touch. As they separated, both struggled for breath. Nicholas leaned his head against hers, keeping his eyes closed, as if afraid to break the spell of a dream. "Assure me there's no mistake," he murmured, his voice rough, showing an unexpected fragility. Before Maria could reply, a dry noise followed by a loud thump startled her. Turning, they saw Carmen standing at the end of the corridor, a fallen tray at her feet, and a look of utter astonishment on her face. The moment had been ruined. Yet what they had begun that evening was already unstoppable. How will Carmen's discovery impact Nicholas and Maria's blossoming relationship? What new challenges await them as they navigate their feelings in the public eye of the mansion? Share your predictions in the comments. If you're on the edge of your seat, hit that like button and subscribe for the next dramatic chapter. It all started with a dizzy spell. As Maria prepared breakfast, she felt the room spin around her. For several days, she had been feeling unwell, attributing it to fatigue and the pressure of her complicated relationship with Nicholas. After the kiss in the hallway, they tried to be discreet in front of other staff, though it was clear something had evolved in their relationship. The discreet glances, the whispered conversations, the accidental encounters in the garden while Lucas played, created a delicate atmosphere of joy that Maria feared could break at any moment. At breakfast, Nicholas, noticing her paleness, asked, "Are you all right?" To which she replied with a lie, forcing a smile. "Yes, just a little tired." However, while tidying the library that afternoon, the dizziness intensified. Her vision blurred, and the last memory before falling into complete darkness was the sound of books crashing to the floor. When she woke up, she was in a hospital room, surrounded by the continuous hum of medical equipment. She tried to sit up, but was stopped by a firm grasp. Nicholas told her in a tense, worried voice not to get up. Lucas was the first name on her parched lips. "He's fine. Carmen is taking care of him," he replied, tenderly caressing her hand. "Why didn't you tell me you were sick?" "I never thought it was serious." The doctor entered seriously, opening the door. After examining her, he confirmed their concerns. Maria had a severe infection that needed immediate treatment, which meant a prolonged hospital stay. Hearing it would be several weeks, panic seized her, reflecting on her face. "I'm sorry, but I can't do it, my son." Nicholas intervened determinedly, assuring her he would take care of Lucas. He asked her to focus solely on her recovery. Despite wanting to express her disagreement, Maria was overcome by exhaustion. With tear-filled eyes, she nodded slightly before falling back into a restless sleep. The beginnings were the most complicated moments for Nicholas. Despite having established a unique connection with Lucas, facing the responsibility of constantly caring for him was something entirely different. During the day, Carmen provided help, but at night, it was he who woke when the baby cried. In the middle of the night, Nicholas rocked Lucas, trying to get him back to sleep, when he was surprised to find himself humming an old children's lullaby his mother used to sing to him in his childhood. Nicholas watched the baby's dark eyes, so similar to Maria's, and felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in a long time. Nicholas whispered to the little one, "We'll watch over your mom, okay?" To which the child responded with a happy babble. Each passing day, the Blackwood mansion underwent a silent transformation. The rooms, once characterized by their rigidity and impeccable organization, now displayed toys scattered on the floor. Nicholas's office became an improvised play space, with a tiny crib placed next to his desk so he could work while caring for the little one. Carmen watched the transformation with surprise and a certain unease. While cooking Lucas's baby food, she told the cook she never imagined she would see the master this way, as if he were someone completely different. The cook, with a knowing expression, mentioned that love transforms people. That little one has achieved something no one else could, melting the ice that surrounded his heart. Every afternoon, Nicholas went to the hospital so Lucas could visit his mother, Maria. He recounted the progress she had made, like starting to sit up with support, how she recognized his name, and the new words she pronounced haltingly. On one of those occasions, Lucas was playing with a teddy bear on the hospital bed when Nicholas showed Maria a picture on his mobile phone. The baby slept peacefully on his chest, both resting on the living room sofa. With a shy expression, Nicholas explained that Carmen had captured that snapshot the day before and commented that they had fallen asleep that way after dinner. Maria felt her eyes well up with tears, not from sadness, but from a deep gratitude that overwhelmed her. Seeing her son so peaceful, so protected in Nicholas's arms, filled her with indescribable emotion. With a trembling voice, she thanked him for watching over him, for everything he did. Nicholas held her hand tenderly, gently caressing her fingers. He whispered that he had received something unexpected, something that gave his life new meaning. Beyond his daily work, a motivation to start each day with happiness. In a moment of silence, their gazes met, leaving words hanging in the air, no need for them to be spoken aloud. Nicholas leaned in softly to kiss Maria's forehead, a gesture so tender that it made her heart pound. When it was time to say goodbye, Nicholas went to get Lucas, who showed his displeasure at having to separate from his mother. Before leaving the room, he paused by the door and fixed his eyes on Maria so intensely that it took her breath away. He told her softly that she didn't have to face this alone again. And in that brief sentence, there was a guarantee that would change their destinies forever. As she watched them leave, Maria understood that, although she was in a medical center and temporarily separated from her son, she had never felt so accompanied in her existence. How will Maria and Nicholas's relationship evolve as she recovers, and they face the new reality of living together in the mansion? What challenges will arise from their unconventional family setup? Share your predictions in the comments. If you're rooting for their love story, hit that like button and subscribe for the next chapter. After 3 weeks in the hospital, Maria waited anxiously in the wheelchair required by hospital protocol for discharge. When she saw Nicholas with Lucas in his arms, her heart leaped. Upon spotting his mother, the child extended his little arms enthusiastically. He joyfully exclaimed, "Mom!" clearly pronouncing a new word he had learned while she was away. Suddenly, tears streamed from Maria's eyes. Despite the nurse's objections, she stood from the chair and hugged her son with all the strength her fragile body allowed. Nicholas smiled, looking at the others. His blue eyes radiated an unusual warmth. "Let's go home," he said simply. And that word, home, sounded different this time. Maria's surprise was great when she saw that the car was not heading to her modest apartment, but to the imposing Blackwood mansion. She expressed her confusion. "I thought you were taking me home." Nicholas informed her, "The doctor recommended you receive care and rest. At the residence, you'll have assistance available at all times. I've prepared a room for you and Lucas." Despite wanting to express her independence as on previous occasions, Maria realized that she still felt vulnerable and in need of help. The notion of being close to Nicholas and witnessing his interaction with Lucas gave her a comforting sensation she didn't want to lose. Upon arriving at the mansion, she noticed that one of the rooms turned out to be a luxurious suite adjoining Nicholas's master bedroom, It had everything Maria and Lucas needed: an immaculate crib, toys, clothes, and even a modern baby monitor. That night, after putting Lucas to bed, Maria expressed her gratitude. "I can't find the words to thank you for all this. You've done more than anyone would expect." They enjoyed a cup of tea together on the tiny balcony of the room. The gentle night breeze carried the scent of the garden flowers, while the moonlight softly illuminated their faces. Nicholas replied, his voice softer than usual, that he hadn't done it out of obligation. "You and Lucas have given me back something I thought I would never recover." The days that followed marked the beginning of a different routine. Maria was no longer just the housekeeper. She now held an ambiguous position in the household and in Nicholas's life. The staff watched with interest, not daring to comment, as their boss shared breakfast daily with her and the child. He spent time playing with Lucas in the garden in the afternoons, and their conversations on the balcony stretched late into the night. A week after her return, during dinner in the main dining room, something previously unimaginable, Nicholas asked a question he had been contemplating for days. "Have you considered what your plans will be once you've fully recovered?" Maria put her fork down, feeling a sudden apprehension in her stomach. She hadn't wanted to consider that possibility, the inevitable moment when she would have to face her everyday life again. She cautiously expressed that she would return to her apartment and resume her duties as a housekeeper if they still required her services. Nicholas looked at Maria intently, as if carefully choosing the words he would say next. "Besides cleaning this house, there's something else I need you for." Maria's heart began to pound intensely. What exactly was he implying? "Nicholas, He interrupted her. "During this time, I've experienced the greatest happiness in a long time. Caring for Lucas and finding you made me realize everything I had been avoiding." He stood up and moved towards her, kneeling beside her chair to be at her level. He intertwined his hands with hers, and Maria felt a slight tremor in his. "Caring for my son made me realize what I've left behind, and what I still long for with all my being," he expressed, his voice laden with emotion. "A family, Maria. A life beyond work routine and the feeling of being alone." Tears were about to fall from her eyes. It was so perfect, so sudden, so intense. "Our worlds are so different," she murmured, dispelling the fear that had been there from the beginning. "You are Nicholas Blackwood, and I am simply the person in charge of cleaning your home," he replied firmly. "You are the woman who helped me discover how to trust and love again. The mother of an exceptional child who helped me heal wounds I thought would never mend. I don't care where you come from. I just want you to be part of my world." That night, once Lucas had fallen asleep, Maria found Nicholas on the balcony, gazing at the sky. Approaching silently, she stopped beside him. For a moment, they both remained silent, coexisting in that shared space. Finally, he expressed his gratitude for all the actions she had taken on their behalf. Nicholas turned to look at her, his penetrating eyes in the semi-darkness. "I should be the one expressing my gratitude," he replied. "Caring for Lucas allowed me to discover my true desires in this journey of life." Maria moved a little closer, feeling her heart pound. The question she formulated conveyed the accumulated tension between them, a tension that had been present and unresolved for months. Nicholas closed the remaining distance, gently approaching and tenderly cupping her face. This time, when their lips met, there was no uncertainty or hesitation. It was a kiss laden with promises, with a tomorrow they both had considered unattainable, but which now seemed within reach. Finally separating, Nicholas rested his forehead against hers, keeping his eyes closed as if he wished to hold on to that moment. With a fragility only she knew, he whispered, "Please, Confirm that we're not making a mistake." Maria cupped his face with her hands, forcing him to maintain eye contact with her. "If it is a mistake," she replied with a wide smile, "it would be the most beautiful of all I've ever made." On that night, under the starry sky, they both felt the possibility of merging their distinct worlds into one. In that universe, Nicholas's painful past and Maria's struggles were simply the paths they had to travel to find each other. What new joys and challenges will Maria and Nicholas face as they openly embrace their love and build a family together? How will their unconventional family dynamic influence their future and the perception of those around them? Share your predictions in the comments. And if you're rooting for their happiness, hit that like button and subscribe for the beautiful conclusion. The following months unfolded like a dream, from which Maria and Nicholas wished never to awaken. The relationship that had begun amidst uncertainties and fears transformed into something beautiful and stable. The old mansion, once characterized by its cold and dark atmosphere, now pulsed with life and warmth. At first, they decided to keep their romance a secret, trying to shield it from prying eyes and malicious opinions. But soon it became inevitable that everyone would notice the obvious. The way Nicholas looked at Maria, the expression of happiness on his face when he saw Lucas approach, calling him Nico, the instinctive gesture of their hands when they found themselves close, all evidenced a growing love. One night, Maria expressed that people would comment as she rested beside him in the garden, watching Lucas play with his blocks. Nicholas interrupted her with a kiss before she could continue speaking about the possible reasons for their relationship. He replied with complete firmness, "Let them talk. What concerns me most is how Lucas feels and how you feel." At first, the staff would comment among themselves when Nicholas began inviting her to dinner, but they never dared to ask questions. One of the cooks whispered about the moment Mrs. Maria began dining at the main table. Carmen joked about how Mick Blackwood looked at her with admiration, hinting that he seemed to consider her special. Despite her playful tone, there was a slight note of caution in her words. What began as confidential slowly became the usual routine. Maria no longer served as a housekeeper. She was now Nicholas Blackwood's official partner. The transformation caused a stir in the social and business circles Nicholas frequented. However, for the first time in his life, he realized that he cared absolutely nothing for others' opinions. Lucas, almost 18 months old, quickly adapted to the new circumstances, demonstrating the typical dexterity of toddlers. He had always been an unconditional and loving support for Nicholas. Being together daily, sleeping under the same roof, enjoying breakfasts and baths together, and sharing bedtime stories, further strengthened the connection that had begun to emerge since that first time in the kitchen. On a sunny Sunday morning, during an outdoor breakfast, Lucas ventured to walk for the first time without support, moving hesitantly from Maria's arms to Nicholas's. The happiness reflected on Nicholas's face, the tears that flowed undisguised as he lifted the child high, celebrating his success, confirmed what Maria already knew. Nicholas was not only her romantic partner, he had embraced a paternal role with Lucas. That night, as the child rested peacefully, Nicholas wrapped his arms around Maria as they admired the moon from their bedroom balcony. In a murmur, he revealed, "I never imagined I would experience happiness again." After the loss of his first child, he had built walls so high it seemed impossible to overcome them. "And we never tried to tear them down," she said with a smile. "We just circled around them easily." Nicholas chuckled softly as he kissed her neck. "Lucas and you didn't just circle my walls. You made them superfluous." However, despite the joy that enveloped them, Maria began to notice changes in her body. At first, she experienced occasional dizziness, then extreme fatigue, and finally, the morning sickness she tried to hide. She was familiar with these signs. She had experienced this before. One evening, Nicholas was in a crucial meeting. Lucas rested peacefully, while Maria decided to isolate herself in the bathroom with a pregnancy test. The wait felt endless, filled with a mix of hope and fear. When the positive result appeared, her hands trembled. A tiny human being in its first months of life. She was expecting Nicholas's baby. The initial happiness quickly turned into nervousness. What would his reaction be? Had his experience with raising Lucas been influenced by a significant traumatic event? Would he be prepared to face the option of becoming a father again? Or would the fear of reliving loss be too great? For several days, Maria kept the information secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. As she watched Nicholas interact with Lucas, she wondered how the family dynamic would be altered by the arrival of the new member. Finally, one night, Maria found Nicholas in his study reviewing papers after having put Lucas to bed. She slowly approached, feeling her heart pound. "Can we talk?" she inquired uncertainly. Instantly, Nicholas looked up, sensing her unease. "What's wrong? Is everything all right?" Maria inhaled deeply, trying to find the precise words. "I need to tell you something," she began, settling into the seat across from him. "It's something very important." Nicholas, gripping his hands, expressed his fear. "You're scaring me," he said. "We can face anything together, no matter what happens." "I just found out I'm expecting a baby," she confessed at last, waiting to see his reaction. "We're going to be parents." Nicholas's facial expression froze. In an instant of great anguish, Maria felt a profound fear. He whispered negatively as he recoiled. "Where's Nicholas?" He shook his head as if to clear his thoughts. He brought a hand to his face, clearly moved. His voice choked. Maria whispered, "The last time, I felt a lump in my throat." Carefully she approached, placing a hand on his. Tenderly she expressed, "This time will be different. Now we are together." For a brief moment, Nicholas closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, and when he looked up again, the fear he had shown earlier had been replaced by another emotion, a longing for a better future. "A little baby?" he murmured, worried that saying it aloud might make the information vanish. "Are you sure?" Maria replied affirmatively, her eyes also filling with tears. "Completely sure." Nicholas stood up and embraced her with such force that he almost lifted her into the air. As they separated, Maria observed the whirlwind of emotions reflected in his eyes. He felt great happiness and optimism, yet at the same time experienced an intense fear he couldn't hide. "I'm scared," he expressed, leaning his forehead against hers. "I remember the last time." "I understand." She gently stopped him. "It's understandable that you feel scared. I feel it too, but this time, circumstances will be different. This time, we are together." Nicholas placed his hand on Maria's abdomen with a gesture overflowing with affection that left her speechless. He said firmly, though his voice was thick with emotion, that he had lost a child in the past, but he would not allow the same to happen with this one. "This time, I will make sure to do everything correctly." That night, together in bed, they made plans for the years to come. They discussed possible names, how to announce the arrival of the new brother or sister to Lucas, and how to convert one of the rooms into a nursery. Maria expressed her surprise at how her family had formed. When she found out she was expecting Lucas and was abandoned by his father, "I thought we would be alone forever." Nicholas hugged her tightly. "You will never be alone again," he assured. "From this moment on, I will be your constant refuge." As they drifted to sleep, Maria reflected on the peculiar and beautiful path destiny had charted for them. Just as, in a moment of extreme anguish, bringing Lucas clandestinely to the mansion, their lives took an irreversible turn. Sadness and suffering could sometimes give way to unexpected but profoundly healing love. Thus, Maria fell asleep with a smile on her lips, in the arms of the man who was once her distant boss and now was her partner, imagining the future they could build together. What new joys and challenges will Maria and Nicholas face as they openly embrace their love and build a family together? How will their unconventional family dynamic influence their future and the perception of those around them? Share your predictions in the comments, and if you're rooting for their happiness, hit that like button and subscribe for the beautiful conclusion. The last rays of sun illuminated the Blackwood Mansion's garden with a golden light, transforming the view into something out of a fairy tale. A year had passed since the night Maria shared the happy news of her pregnancy with Nicholas, and the life they had built together flourished like the beautiful roses that adorned the once sober garden. From a bench under the leafy oak, Maria watched Nicholas playing with Lucas, who, at 2.5 years old, moved with tireless vitality, chasing a ball. The baby Lucy, only 4 months old, slept peacefully in her parents' arms. Her tiny face was an ideal mix of her parents, Nicholas's blue eyes and Maria's warm smile. During the pregnancy, rigorous precautions were maintained, and there were moments of anxiety, especially for Nicholas, as memories of his previous history resurfaced occasionally. Each successful ultrasound, every felt baby movement, every medical consultation with good news gradually contributed to the healing of those past wounds. When Lucy was born, crying loudly and in perfect health, Nicholas couldn't hold back tears of happiness as he held her for the first time. These tears represented pure joy, an emotion he hadn't experienced since the loss of his first child years ago. With childlike pride, Lucas ran to Nicholas, shouting, "Daddy, look! I caught the ball!" Nicholas, emotional, lifted him into the air and spun him around, causing uncontrolled laughter from the little one. A smile spread across Maria's face as she witnessed the scene. Nicholas's evolution continued to amaze her. The reserved and isolated man she had identified as her boss transformed into an affectionate father and a caring and loving partner. The residence, which had once resembled a cold and desolate tomb, now overflowed with games, joy, and occasionally a child's tantrum. 3 months ago, Lucas officially took the Blackwood surname, after Nicholas and Maria married in a small ceremony in the mansion gardens. The wedding ceremony was modest, but moving. Lucas proudly carried the rings, while Carmen, a witness from the beginning of their relationship, was discreetly emotional as she listened to the vows. Nicholas approached Maria, who was on his shoulders, and asked her what she was thinking. With a smile, she replied that she was reflecting on their relationship and how they had come to this point. Nicholas sat next to her, helping Lucas gently approach his little sister, whom he immediately observed with his typical curiosity. Nicholas admitted that sometimes he still felt like he was in a dream as he put his arm around Maria. After the loss of his firstborn, he had dedicated his life entirely to work, firmly believing that family affection was not meant for him. Maria rested her head on his shoulder, inhaling the familiar scent she enjoyed so much. After his father left us high and dry, I was convinced Lucas and I would be an inseparable team against any adversity. Lucas, tired of the adults' conversation, had run off to chase his ball again, enjoying the freedom offered by the large garden. Nicholas whispered to himself, reflecting on how his life had changed in the last 2 years, as he watched his adopted son having fun and his biological daughter sleeping in his beloved partner's arms. You wouldn't have imagined it. Maria added, clearly understanding his thoughts. Exactly, he replied, giving her a gentle kiss. But I wouldn't change it for anything in this life. Life hadn't been ideal for them. They had to face the curious and sometimes malicious glances of the social elite Nicholas frequented. The disguised comments about the housekeeper who had conquered the magnate. Carmen had shared with them the insinuations of Nicholas's old acquaintances, who suggested Maria was only interested in his fortune, as well as the barely concealed murmurs about the authenticity of Lucas as a Blackwood. However, Nicholas had stunned everyone, including Maria, with his complete disinterest in those views. Before, this man was very concerned about his image and business prestige, but now he clearly showed that his family was his absolute priority. He had reduced his working hours, delegated tasks to others, and restructured his routine to be present for all significant moments. Suddenly, Maria asked, "Do you remember the day we met? When I found myself with Lucas in the kitchen. I thought you were going to fire me right then." A smile spread across Nicholas's face as he recalled that moment that had transformed the course of their lives. "At that moment, I only perceived a setback," he confessed. "I never imagined I had before me the opportunity of a lifetime." Lucy stirred in Maria's arms, opening her blue eyes and observing everything around her with that surprising expression typical of babies. Nicholas offered a finger that the baby grasped with surprising strength. Maria commented tenderly, "I think we saved each other. You gave us a place to live, and we taught you how to love." Upon returning, Lucas ran quickly with a flower in his hand, which he proudly handed to his mother. Nicholas placed him on his lap, making him part of the family portrait. Both had experienced unexpected changes in their lives. Suffering, absence, and loneliness had left a deep mark on them. However, they allowed them to appreciate and distinguish joy when they finally found it in an unexpected place. Between a distant boss and his housekeeper, between a man afraid to love again and a woman who only longed for a stable future for her son. As evening fell, when the sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky with orange and pink hues, Nicholas looked at his family and understood a simple yet significant truth. This life was unknown to him in the past, but now he cannot conceive of his existence without it. After much play, Lucas rested on Nicholas's chest, while Lucy yawned in her mother's arms, showing signs of tiredness. United by the love that arose from the difficult moments they lived in the past, the family they never imagined creating enjoyed the sunset together, aware that the next day would bring renewed challenges and joys, as well as a love that grew with each shared day. Has the romantic story of Maria and Nicholas managed to move you? This story tells of two individuals from opposite backgrounds who meet thanks to Lucas, a child, demonstrating that affection has the power to heal deep wounds and create connections between diverse realities. If the story about giving love another chance moved you, remember to like, leave a comment, and share it with that special person who also believes in the healing power of love. In the comments, share which country you are watching this wonderful story from, and if you would like to see more similar content in the future. If the characters have captivated you as much as they have us, we invite you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future narratives that will thrill you, make you smile, and perhaps move you. From what part of the planet are you visiting us right now? For today,